Okay, here we go. First recording. And I'm also going to have this up on the screen for you as well. So that's going to pop up here in a second. Okay, so as I get to each square, I'm going to also put into the frame the materials that you need to complete that square. So I'm in Sgraffito. You need black underglaze. You need a wide paintbrush. And eventually you're going to need a Sgraffito tool that looks like that. But it may take you a little while to come back to the Sgraffito tool, okay? So first thing that I'm gonna do for Sgraffito, Why is it not showing up there? Technical difficulties. There's always technical difficulties. Okay, hold on, guys. There we go. Okay, guys can see the screen now? Okay, so first thing that you need to do in the Sgraffito part that you will get to tomorrow is you need to get your black underglaze, load up your white brush, and you just need to go right onto the raw clay and cover that Sgraffito area in black underglaze, and then you need to let it sit and dry for a little bit. Okay, so you'll have to come back and carve on it later. Thank you. Okay, I've also given myself a little water cup so that I can clean, if I'm using brushes, so I can clean my brush in between each time. Okay? So there we are for Sgraffito for right now. I've got my black underglaze. I may not be able to carve in it until tomorrow. So I'm just gonna leave it there for right now. Okay? Next box that I'm gonna go into is the texture box. And I'm just gonna get my little handy dandy texture thing here you guys will be able to use. And you're just literally pressing things in to the clay here. So I tried a little spring. Now I'm trying some pasta. Can try the stamp. Ooh, look at that. Pretty. You can get in here and try these rollers. Okay, so you're just kind of layering up textures in that box. Okay, for the wash, so I'm going to go to the wash. It looks best when you have texture on there, and I really want to try this wood grain, and I'm going to see if I can try and like lay it on that one little tile there. So I'm just going to get this texture mat. And I'm gonna lay it kind of on top where that wash is, and then I'm just gonna use my fingers and just kind of press down on that and hope that I stay within that box, and then I'm gonna lift it up and see what happens. Oh yeah, got it a little bit. Okay, if it goes over into another box, that's okay. So in your washes and texture, you're gonna have some type of impression in there, okay? All right, so that's it for that. Set those off to the side here. Okay, next one is carving. Okay, so any carving tool is anything that has like a loop at either end. There's really large ones. This one's technically a Sgraffito carving tool, and it's just kind of characterized by its ends, so you can do either one, it doesn't matter, okay? So when you come in and you do carving, you have to be pretty careful if your clay's really wet, because these will really dig in there. So you can choose how you would like to carve. If you just want to do some lines, that's great. If you want to try and do like little short carving practice, maybe you can like make leaves or flowers or whatever. Whatever you want to do is fine. You can try different widths of carving tools. If you do that and you get little boogers on there, just leave the boogers there until it's dry, and then all you have to do is just wipe them off when it's dry. And right now, if you were to try and get it, you'll just smush it. Okay, what's my next one? Slip. So I filled up the babiest bottle of the slip here. So there's my slip bottle. And then this bag has all of the attachments for the tips that I can use. So I'm just gonna pick the first one that I grab in here. Okay, so there's my tip that goes on the slip bottle. I'm going to take off this top part, set it to the side, put this on here. Okay, so you have to set it in there and then you have to twist it to get it tight. And before I actually start on my clay, on my canvas, I'm gonna give it a test run. Yeah. So the problem that you may encounter, like I am right now, is there's a chunk in there, so I was able to get some slip and then it clogged. There's needles that are in that little bag, and you can use that to unclog if you need. Hey. Yeah. Okay. So with your slip, oh, bummer. This is going to be the bummer part, is if it clogs up quite a bit. So I might have to stick that through the blender another time. Oops. There's your slip design right there. Okay. Hopefully I can get a line going here. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm getting a little frustrated, so I'm going to go with a thicker tip and hope that that works out better. Okay, so I changed out. Let's try. Oh, there we go. Okay, here we go. Okay, so slip. This is called slip trailing. So depending on the amount of pressure that you use will depend on how thick. If you hesitate when you slip trail, you'll get kind of crummy lines like this. If you work nice and fast, your lines will end up looking quite a bit better. Okay? So that's slip trailing. And then you can even, if you don't want to do just slip trailing, you could also get in there and kind of work through some of that stuff like with your fingers and see how that's going to fire out. Okay, so this tip opposed to this one worked a lot better. This one kept getting clogged. Okay, so you might want to use the plastic tips instead of the metal ones. Really important to also clean these out after each use so they don't dry and clog up. Okay, all right, next one. Mishma has to be kind of a couple steps. So for Mishma, you need a needle tool, which is what this is, needle tool. And in there, you're going to draw yourself a design. So I really liked that one tea bowl that had that skull in there. I thought that was pretty sweet. So I'm gonna draw that in here. And when you do this, you're gonna want to draw in there pretty deep, okay? So if you do that with really wet clay, you're gonna have a lot of boogers. Just leave them in there until it dries out. So you're gonna draw that in there pretty deep. Get some teeth going in there. Okay, and then you guys can go in and you want to do like drawing exercise, kind of like hatching and cross hatching. This will work a lot better if you let the clay dry out some, but you draw your image in there first. You're gonna draw your image in there first, and then that's where you can go in and add some like hatching or cross hatching. You get shadows and stuff in there. Okay, so something like that for Mishma. Okay, so technically at this point I could be done and I could get it fired, but I can put underglaze on. Can someone grab that? I can put underglaze on wet clay or already fired clay, and I can do the same thing with decal. So I'm just going to do it here in this step just to get it out of the way. Okay, so underglazes, remember that's in these little jars and they stay pretty true to their color. So I went and just grabbed myself a little baby brush, and underglazes are pretty thick, so you can just use it like paint. So you're going to paint yourself little pictures or just little abstract brush strokes, whatever you want to do. Okay, so they can either be just brush strokes or you can come in and be really intentional. This one's a little flower, kinda. Wash that brush out. And you could pick a couple colors if you want. If not, don't worry about it. You can stick with one color. Did I just lose that? There we go. Too much water. Okay, so you can just kind of play with underglazing, layering it like that, and then on that specific part, you will put half clear glaze on it and half not, so you can see what the underglazes look like with clear glaze and with no clear glaze. Okay, and then decal. So you'll end up cutting yourself a small strip on the decal. Carefully at this stage, because the clay's still pretty wet. In the decal box, you're gonna just wet it down really lightly, really sparingly with some water, okay? So on your decal slice, you start with a layer of water, okay? Then just like a stick-on tattoo, you're just gonna lay it down, and you guys can kind of see it already sticking, so I'm just gonna pat it down with my finger carefully. And you want to try and get all the sides. So I kind of patted it down with my finger, and then very gently with my still wet brush, I'm going to kind of brush the back of it on there. And I'm just going to let it sit for a little while. Just going to let it sit for a little while. Okay? Washes, that's going to happen after we fire it, but make sure to get some texture in there first. Glaze, that's gonna happen after we fire it for the first time. And then cold finish, that's also gonna happen after we fire for the first time. So in your wet clay stage, you can get everything but the wash, besides texture, glaze, and cold finish done. On your Sgraffito, you have to get your layer of underglaze on there, but it has to be not shiny when you go in and carve. So I have it primed, but I cannot carve in it until tomorrow until I've let it dry out a little bit. And then with the Mishma, it's a little too wet to carve, like I kind of started my picture, but I need to wait until I'm almost ready to put this in the kiln, then get in there, really scratch deep in there with my needle tool. Then I'll go and probably put either a wash on top or an underglaze, and then I'll get a metal scraper and scrape off that color, leaving only the color in my incised lines. Does everybody remember me talking about that? Okay. All right. So on your worksheet, the last couple notes that we'll have to take or do on them is how to complete your wash, how to complete your glaze, and how to complete your cold finish. And we can't do those until it's already been fired. On your decal, technically you can leave the paper on there. It'll fire out in the kiln. I'm going to try and lift it up right now and hope that my stick-on tattoo is going to stay on there. So here we go. And there we go. So some of it was kind of left over. So I could have left it on there for a little bit longer, but it works. Okay. Anybody have any questions on this one? Negative? Okay. So don't go anywhere because we're going to also need to get some pinch pots going. Those of you that have been in ceramics before and you know how to do pinch pots, you need 3 of them. About this size, and you can use this clay, the scrap clay. You don't have to use yours. Those of you that don't know how to make pinch pots, I'm going to keep demonstrating this and keep recording it for you and put it on canvas. So I'm going to move my tile out of the way, and I'm going to, when you guys pick up your tile to go store it, you're going to move it via the canvas. So I'm going to move that out of the way. Okay, and then I'm going to come over here to the supplies. Back here. And I'm going to get my clay to demonstrate how you do pinch pot for those of you that don't know. Okay? So if you have any, don't put your tile on uneven surfaces. Like I did on my desk. Okay. All right. So you're gonna need 3 chunks of clay about the size of your palm, and you start it off a little smaller or larger. It doesn't really matter. You're gonna start by patting it into a sphere. It doesn't have to be perfect, and don't do a giant one to start with. Just kind of start small. Okay. So to do a pinch pot, you start with your sphere, and you're going to stick your thumb in the middle, but not go all the way through. So you're going to stick it in the middle, where you have kind of like this little indent. Everybody see that? Okay. Yeah, use maybe all 3 of those pieces of clay together. There you go. Yeah, go larger. You're making a little pot out of this, a little pinch pot. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so once you have stuck your thumb in there, that's going to be the inside of your pot. Okay, so now you're literally going to pinch out the sides to make it really even. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my 2 fingers and my thumb, and I'm going to just do a pinchy movement like this all the way around this pot, and it will kind of thin out the walls and start turning it into a little bowl. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. So I'm just gently pinching my fingers and my thumb together with the clay in the middle. Okay, so you're going to start noticing that it's going to get thinner and taller. Your goal is to try and keep it as even as you can. So Greg, slow down with your pressure. So use a little bit lighter. You're okay. Just keep going, but kind of ease off a little more gentle. Okay, so as I pinch, I just turn it in my hand as I'm pinching, and I can kind of start switching over to where I'm double pinching. Okay, again, you want pretty even thickness all the way around, even in the bottom. Don't leave that super thick or it'll explode and then everybody will cry. Okay, and all right, for me, that's about as even as I can get it all the way around. So once you get to this point, you can also kind of tap it on the table so that it'll sit just right. You can either store it like this in your bin, or you can store it upside down like this in your bin. Okay, either one. After it starts to dry a little bit, it's going to get leather hard. And that term means that the clay is still wet, but it has stiffened up enough that we can work with it. So you guys notice it's pretty wet right now. Yeah, and you can't really do anything about, you could do smoothing in it a little bit like this, but at this stage you're going to end up kind of mushing it up more than smoothing it. All right. So I want you to make 3 individual pinch pots here. And the reason you're doing that is once we get done with our tiles that we just did here, these tiles, you're going to demonstrate the top 3 surface designs that you like the most on your pinch pot. So you'll do like 1 surface design treatment per pinch pot. Does that make sense? Or you could do multiple, I guess. So here's our practice. Here's where we're applying, and it's even beginner application, because then you can kind of work through the kinks on this stuff. So then when you guys get to your actual ceramic pieces, you know how you like to finish, you know how to do all of these. I don't have to show you every time, and you can apply them onto your work as you go, okay? There might be some things where you want full out texture on everything, go for it, all right? So I didn't touch on really that at all last year, so I'm hoping that in doing this, it'll broaden everybody's abilities, okay? Does anyone have any questions for me that I can clarify via either the pinch pots or the slab? No? Okay. All right. So again, whenever you guys come in here tomorrow, hopefully the slab will be leather hard. And you guys can start doing this. We are going to finish those slides at some point, but I wanted to get this going and get kind of real clay work going in that. So what we can do is you come in here, get these as completed as possible. I could fire them over the weekend, and then we can use the rest of the time tomorrow to work on slides. And then on Monday, we can do a finish up on slides, and then Tuesday, we can start introducing who's gonna start on what, like wheel throwing or their first project. Does that sound good to everybody? Yep, so we're good here. You guys wrote yourself good directions on here so that if you don't need to go into Canvas to watch this video, you don't have to? Okay, fabulous.
Hey, thanks for watching episode 1 of Miss A's demonstrations.